In the early morning hours of 1916, the peace in Medina was shattered by distant explosions. The Arab revolt, led by Sharif Hussein bin Ali and backed by the British, descended upon the holy city. They carried out acts of sabotage, destroying supply trains and bridges, effectively isolating Medina from the outside world. The Ottoman defenders, under the command of Fahd Pasha, found themselves surrounded and cut off. Inside the city, the situation grew increasingly desperate. Supplies dwindled as the siege tightened its grip. Food and water became precious, carefully rationed. Ammunition was scarce, and makeshift hospitals filled with the wounded. Back in Istanbul, the Sultan, recognizing the inevitable defeat and seeking to prevent further loss, ordered Fahd to surrender. However, Fahd Pasha chose defiance. Despite overwhelming odds, the defenders held their ground. For nearly 3 years, the siege continued. This is the story of Ottoman commander Fahd Pasha's steadfast defense of Medina. Driven by courage and unwavering faith, the Ottoman Empire during World War I was plagued by internal strife, economic hardship, and rising nationalist movements within its vast and diverse population. In the heart of this turmoil, during the summer of 1916, Sharif Hussein bin Ali of Mecca and British officer Thomas Edward Lawrence huddled in a secluded tent, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of oil lamps. They pored over maps, planning a daring attack on Ottoman forces. Guided by Lawrence's expertise and backed by British support, they aimed to ignite a revolt that would echo across the desert. The plan was ambitious. The Hejaz region, home to the holy cities of Mecca and Medina, was not only the spiritual heartland of Islam, but also a strategic linchpin for the Ottoman Empire. Medina, in particular, held profound significance as the resting place of the Prophet Muhammad, making its defense a matter of deep religious importance. Control over these cities reinforced the Sultan's role as the Caliph, the leader of the Muslim world. Losing them would devastate the empire's religious and political standing. To address the growing danger, Jamal Pasha, one of the 3 Pashas, also known as the Young Turk Triumvirate, appointed Fahd Pasha as the commander of the Hejaz Expeditionary Force. Fahd, known for his deep convictions and unwavering loyalty, had previously managed complex military and administrative tasks in Baghdad and Yemen. These diverse and challenging environments provided Fahd with significant experience, preparing him well for the strategic demands and leadership required in the Hejaz. As Fahd Pasha took command, he understood the gravity of his mission. Defending Medina was not just a military task, it was a sacred obligation. After arriving in Medina, he quickly gathered his officers. With a steely gaze and a voice that carried the weight of his convictions, he addressed his troops. "Officers of the heroic Turkish army, O little Mohammeds, come forward and promise me before our Lord and the Prophet to honor your faith with the supreme sacrifice of your lives." His words ignited determination among the soldiers. Meanwhile, Sharif Hussein, with his 4 sons and Lawrence's support, launched a relentless assault on Medina. The rebels used guerrilla tactics, surprising Ottoman outposts and planting explosives under the cover of darkness. Explosions echoed through the valleys as the Hejaz Railway, a vital supply line, was targeted and destroyed, falling completely into enemy hands. The rebels managed to encircle the Medina fortress completely. Cut off from any outside help, the city's population and soldiers began to suffer severely from hunger and disease. The situation worsened significantly for both the city's defenders and its inhabitants. Fahd Pasha, with his remaining forces, continued to defend the desert route and Medina. Amidst the despair of the siege, one night, exhausted and worn out, he lay down to rest. As he drifted into sleep, he began to dream. In this dream, he found himself among unknown men working in a small square. Suddenly, he saw a man with a sublime countenance. It was the Prophet Muhammad. The Prophet, with his left arm resting on his hip under his robe, said to Fahd in a protective manner, "Follow me." Fahd followed him a few paces and then woke up. He immediately went to the Prophet's sacred mosque, prostrated in prayer, and gave thanks near his tomb. This vision convinced Fahd that he was under Allah's protection and that he must not surrender Medina. Amid these worsening conditions, Fahd received a letter from Istanbul, sent by the Sultan himself. In the letter, the Sultan instructed Fahd to surrender the city to the enemy. However, Fahd pretended that he did not receive it, determined to continue defending Medina at all costs. His decision was not merely a military strategy, but a profound commitment to his faith and duty. The situation within the city reached a critical point. Supplies were virtually exhausted, and the defenders, weakened by hunger and disease, struggled to maintain their positions. The soldiers, who had been valiantly holding the line for nearly 3 years, were now pushed to their physical and emotional limits. The Ottoman Empire was already weakened by a series of military defeats and internal strife. Key cities such as Baghdad, Jerusalem, and Damascus had fallen, stretching the Ottoman military thin. Internal turmoil, economic hardship, and rising nationalist movements further exacerbated the empire's vulnerability. By October 1918, the Ottoman Empire reached a breaking point, leading to the signing of the Armistice of Mudros. This armistice ended Ottoman participation in World War I, placing the empire under severe restrictions and leading to the occupation of its key territories by Allied forces. The new Ottoman government, now under British military administration, faced immense pressure to comply with the armistice terms. Fahd Pasha received direct orders from the new Ottoman government to surrender Medina. Fahd Pasha's final decision to surrender Medina was made under immense pressure. Understanding the gravity of the situation and the need to protect his men, he negotiated terms for an honorable surrender. On January 10, 1919, nearly 3 years after the siege began, Fahd Pasha and his men left Medina with their heads held high. Fahd Pasha's defense of Medina was driven by his strong faith, demonstrating that faith can provide strength and meaning to suffering. His sense of duty and honor made surrender unthinkable. Lawrence, in his memoir, 7 Pillars of Wisdom, admired Fahd tenacity and leadership. Despite being adversaries, Lawrence respected his resilience, recognizing him as a formidable opponent. Lawrence's reflections highlight Fahd's lasting impact, earning him the title Lion of the Desert, symbolizing his unwavering faith and honor in the face of overwhelming adversity.